All right. Good morning, Arshnoor. Hi, how are you?
Good morning, Rahat. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. It's actually a pleasure to be talking to you since just for our audience here, I just like to introduce Arshnoor here. She has graduated from our Jindal batch of 2024 itself last year from MSc Applied Psychology, and she gave her net as well, where she ranked AIR 78. So, Arshnoor, if there's anything else you'd like to add to your introduction, so please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Rahat. Hi, everyone. My name is Arshnoor. As Rahat already mentioned, I am a graduate from Masters of Applied Psychology from Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, OP Jindal. I completed my master's in 2024 last year. And since my specialization was Industrial and Organisational Psychology, I think Jindal was probably the best choice I could have made since it's such a niche applied psych subject, and there was just an opportunity to get exposed to so much experiential learning. And it feels great to be in conversation back at this institution. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So, Arshnoor, how was your experience here at Jindal like? So, if you could give us a little insight into your personal life also here at Jindal, as well as what all you learned from this institution, just a little bit into that.
Sure. So I still remember very vividly when I just graduated from my bachelor's degree from Chandigarh and I was applying for master's colleges. And Jindal was all over. Everybody was talking about it. And specifically for my case, since as I mentioned earlier as well, industrial organizational is a very up and coming field, and you don't get a lot of professional courses that are specifically targeted towards that field. So it was a very easy choice for me. When I entered the first day, I was marveling at the campus. It was huge. And even by the end of my degree, I felt like that campus was huge. It only got bigger. And so did my community and my network and my skills. Everything got more and more, it was all expansive. I got to meet some of the best of friends, people who will always be by my side professionally and personally. It was such a smooth ride, academically and personally. It's very difficult for your parents to just send you off to a residential campus in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Sonipat is in the middle of nowhere. So they were rest assured when they met with the faculty and they had a chance to interact with the administration. And it was also just such a warm welcome every time I came back, not just the first time. Like I said, academically, it was smooth sailing, and personally as well. You don't have to focus on anything but your studies, which is the best part. And even within your studies, you get so much opportunity to explore the extracurricular, even subjects that have absolutely no correlation to your degree, but just interest you and call to you at a specific time. You can sit for those electives, you can look at interdisciplinary research. Those opportunities are just unparalleled. You don't get that anywhere else, at least in India. So, all in all, it was a great experience.
Well, I'm glad to hear that as well from one alumni to the other because, again, I also had a great experience in this institution itself. So, Arshni, just to shift to the topic itself, what are your opinions on it? So, from student to, scholar, career paths, and, psychological research and academia. So, what made you choose this kind of career path? And could you delve a little more deep into how you actually prepared for your NET exam as well?
Absolutely. If you permit, Rehat, I would like to just share my screen and open up this little deck that I have for you all, if
Yes,
that's
yes,
okay.
absolutely. Please do, please do.
All right. Let me just, how can I share my, oh yeah, I see the option. Are you able to view my screen as well?
Yes, yes, it's visible.
All right, great. So we'll start from the beginning. The reason I wanted to talk about this topic today mainly had to do with the fact that I have personal expertise. I have gone through this the entirety of last year, and it doesn't get more real than this. I want to share everything from the beginning to the end, the mistakes I made, the lessons I thought I would have been better off if I knew earlier. So as I graduated, I was a fresh graduate from Jindal in 2024. I had already completed an apprenticeship at CyberHub with a high frequency trading company by the name of Graviton Research Capital. It was a wonderful experience. I felt like I was prepared to step into the industry, and this was my call to organizational psychology. Then I was very fortunate to shift and work with a startup in Gurgaon, and that was again a very wonderful experience. Since I got to step into more of a leadership role here, it felt like I'd really come into my own. But then I think 6 months into the job, I realized that maybe this was all that corporate had to offer. And I'd always wanted to do a PhD. I just never thought that the time would come so soon and I would have to start prepping for it, laying down the foundation and the hard work. So that's how it all started. In December, I decided that I'd sit for June 2025 net. UGC net is something that I'll be diving deeper into towards the middle of the presentation. But just to start off, I think it becomes very important to just discuss research in general. Research is extremely important. And again, circling back to how Jindal played such a big role in this, at Jindal Institute of Behavioral Sciences, it is hyper focused on research. This was my first time entering a psychological laboratory that had class apart machinery, tools, and assessments, kits that were accessible to us at the first go. And we had so much exposure to real time data collection. Right from the second semester, we started practicing and conducting qualitative research, group projects, assisting professors as research assistants. So there was so much of that background that I always felt drawn to a couple of words that you can see on the screen here. Data was not one of them at the time. I was very scared of data, but I really loved analysis. I loved the prediction part of it. I liked how you could play with different things and see the results in front of you right there. And isn't it such a beautiful thing to be able to merge an idea with evidence and tell the world that, hey, I've discovered something? So I thought that was very cool. Uh, so before I start about UGC, these are some basic data points that we can look at when we talk about psychological research. It mainly has to do with description and explanation and predictability. We're trying to understand what was studied already, trying to, at the same time, also accommodate and assimilate new information while making some careful accurations, estimations about the future, right? So this is quite a wonderful data set that you can see here. As psychology qualifies as a social science, observation becomes a key part of psychology. You end up understanding that the research graph that has grown across years is proof to why social sciences are progressing and have been able to have such an applied implementation in the current times. Psychology is the most interdisciplinary field out there. It's just somehow managed to make its way into all the nooks and corners of every other field. So, research is the primary reason we've been able to get there. Um, Finally, how to become a researcher. Here we discuss a little bit about how there are all other fields, but today the focus is going to be research and academia. And we start with qualifying for eligibility exams. The one that I'll be talking about in detail is UGC-NET. The University Grants Commission National Eligibility Test is conducted by the National Testing Agency, NTA. This test is a biannual test. It's conducted twice a year. There's a December session, one which is coming up very soon for those who are interested in applying this time around. And the other is the June session, which I just sat for a couple of months ago. So basically, when you start preparing for any competitive exam, you need to be very, very thorough with the format of the exam. You need to understand what is it that you'll be setting your goals for. You need to know what you're in for. You need to have very realistic expectations. So when I started prepping in January, the first thing I remember doing was going on the net, looking up the format, understanding what are the units that are going to be covered. And I came across paper one and paper two. And I was very confused because I thought this was a psychology centered examination. What do you mean I'll also have to study general knowledge and reasoning and mathematics once again? I thought I was done with that in 10th grade. But this is a really great opportunity for scorers who later I'll be talking about the three different slabs who want to aim higher and who want to take it a little bit further with their scores. Paper one is a great opportunity. Develop your aptitude skills. This is all about practice. So we'll be discussing about how to prepare later as well. So let's just go over the format briefly. Also, Rahit, please feel free to interrupt me, ask any questions that you might have going along the way. I have a tendency to talk very quickly, so you can interrupt me whenever you want.
No, no, I think you put so much effort into this PPT. I think a lot of people will, benefit from whatever you've been saying so far. I think you're going with the flow and I like that, like that about you.
Thank you.
So I
All
think,
right.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I'll let you know if I have any other questions, but I'll let you finish first.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that's about paper one. We have 50 questions from paper one, and they're spread across 10 units. I would say about seven or eight of them are extremely easy, very, very scoring. These are the units that are the most, the ones that you don't need to really prep for in advance. You can just start practicing 2 to 3 weeks in advance, and you'll be good to go. There are about two other units by the name of higher education and teaching aptitude, which I feel are, first of all, quintessential to research. It's so important to be familiar with current terminologies of education, policy making, the current technological advances in education. And very interesting, but these are the two units that require some work beforehand as well. Um, you should ideally devote an hour to this section of the paper when you sit for it during the exam. Paper two is psychology, a wonderful set of units, again, 10 units. And the only two that I feel we might not have any introduction to prior to giving this exam, even after doing your bachelor's and master's in psychology, are the Indian psychology unit, which is the unit number one, and the final unit, which has to do with development and current advances. Both of these units are constantly getting upgraded. The latter, because of its very nature of advancement, you need to stay up to date with everything that's been happening currently, the buzz terms, culturally appropriate, whatever has been looking very salient according to the zeitgeist. And then the first unit, which is Indian psychology, is a tough nut to crack, but it's also one of those units where when you're thorough, then you get full out of there's no chance of not scoring full marks if you've already prepared well. There are no tricky questions with the first unit, so it's very easy to um, solidify your scoring in that unit. Again, here you have MCQ questions. Both of these papers are going to be in the MCQ format. They happen on the same day. Paper one and paper two will, you'll be sitting for the two of them together. And the only difference is that paper two is going to have 100 questions, whereas paper one has 50 questions. Paper two will carry the same weightage as paper one, where each question carries 2 marks. The best part about NET is that there is no negative marking. And as far as I am aware, there's also no limit to the number of attempts that you can give. There is an age limit, but the number of attempts one person is allowed to give are, I don't think there's a number to it. You can sit for it twice a year, you can sit for it once, you can sit for it as many times as you want and keep trying your best to get the best score. Um, okay, so we move to the three slabs that we have. I feel this is something that's very important to discuss because many people are not aware of what each slab entails and the award and the benefits that you get by qualifying each slab. So the first eligibility criteria is PhD admission, which you can see on your right. PhD only requires you to, of course, qualify a certain cutoff. This is the lowest level of qualification that one can achieve through UGC-NET. PhD only is accepted at multiple universities across India and makes you eligible to apply for PhD. That's pretty much it. Apart from it, you get the basic, I think, a stipend of about 8,000 rupees per month by the government. That's the law currently. And then you have the assistant professor slot, which is the net slot. Once you qualify for the assistant professor slot, this technically has a higher cutoff, usually by about 20 marks. In the latest trends, it's been even more than 20 marks since the competition has gotten crazy. So here, the benefits that you get, number one, and first and foremost, is the fact that you are able to apply for professorship now. You can now sit for interviews at universities that are taking openings for assistant professors. And this is probably the best way to get into academia without having a PhD, first and foremost. Um, but most people like to go for a PhD to add to their credibility and credentials to also just increase the chances of bagging the interview. And the other benefit, of course, you already qualify for a PhD, just like PhD only slot. Finally, the JRF slot, the golden slot, the one that everybody eyes, it's the Junior Research Fellowship Award. Here, the competition is very, very slim, and it's only by a margin of about 2 marks that you can make it or lose it. Junior Research Fellowship is given to about 1.2% applicants across all applications based on your merit. The cutoff this time for JRF was 248, which is the highest it's ever been, the highest it's ever been for any subject as well. And psychology is notorious for having the highest cutoffs. So, this is not to scare anyone. I feel like this just goes to show that we have some very competent batches coming up right now. Everyone who is having the same resources doesn't need to go out of their way to purchase extra books. I mean, it's a leveled field for everyone, which I feel is a wonderful thing. So with JRF, the major benefit is that you, as the name suggests, get a fellowship of about 37,000, if I'm not wrong, every month to promote your research and also just as an award for your merit. So these are the three slots. When I was preparing, when I got to know of these benefits, of course, it motivates one even more to want to be able to become financially independent while you're doing this degree, which requires so much dedication. So these are the past trends. As you can see, the cutoffs have only gone higher. The recent trend has been of extremely easy exams, exams that don't have a moderate level of difficulty, don't have a difficult level of difficulty. Very easy, very basic exams that target your core concepts, concepts that people often overlook because they're too busy focusing on other details, trying to get their stats right, which is, of course, very important. Research stats is a very important topic. But the main theme that is being focused on recently has to do with the core concepts and being familiar with theorists, understanding when a theory was introduced, why was it popular at the time, um, some facts as well, which are asked most often. But yeah, this was the graph I was able to find. 2025 has seen a similar trend. It's only gone up since then. And this is the most important part of the session, how to prepare. How do you actually manage your time? How do you start from the scratch when you've never given this exam before? The best thing to do is to just get a book. The most basic psychology introduction books work as well. You could get Cicerelli, you could get Barron, any book that you've read for your bachelor's or your master's. You go through the syllabus, And then what you do is you solve a previous year question paper. You sit down, you time yourself, and you work on solving a question paper. For 2 hours, you sit there and you solve the psychology paper. Once you calculate your score, you will have a very clear idea of the subjects where you're lacking in and the subjects that can be counted as your strengths. Most of the times, people find it very easy to say that psychology, I've done this for 6 years now. I started studying in 11th standard. It's not going, how tough can it really be? But once you look at the depth and the width of the syllabus, it's so expansive, it's so extensive. There's no end to the number of theories that you need to cover. Even most of the times, when you're done with paper two and you finally found a strong footing there, you go to paper one and you're like, I don't know anything here. So there's no end to that. The one thing that you can do to get a slight edge is practice papers, understand already the areas that you need to really work on, and then start preparing, targeting specifically the topics that need more attention. Here, I've given a rough breakout of how I used to manage my studies. Since I was also in the process of writing my research proposal at the time, I've also included some reading for fun for about 10% of the time. But yeah, focus on studying new materials most of the times and the strengths, the concepts that you feel like you've already revised thoroughly. Keep practicing them over and over again, making sure that you don't miss out on any marks in those areas. And finally, practicing is the only way you can gain confidence, not do silly mistakes, which are the decider of your rank at the end of the day. I feel like practice is the one thing which separates the toppers, the rankers, from those who hundreds of 500s of people who have scored the same marks or are just at a difference of two marks from each other. The only thing that separates the two is practice. So practice as much as you can. And the more you practice, the more confident you get as well, of course. Any questions till now? I think we've covered a good chunk. Yeah.
No, I think you're I think explaining it quite beautifully. So I think I'll reserve all my questions for the end of the whole PPT itself.
Session.
So yeah,
Mm.
please.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. So, the other part that I wanted to talk about, since UGC-NET is not the end all be all of your career, this is just an exam. It's a route, it's a path to get to where you actually want to be. So, once you're done with your preparation or you're consistent with your preparation and now you have more time on hand, what to do with this time? And what is the main purpose of qualifying such an exam? You want to get into a PhD program of your dreams. You want to make sure that you have the best supervisor. You want to make sure that you align with the research domain that your supervisor has already worked in. So, all these things, they need to really bottle down to the fact that a research proposal is going to be your face for every application that you send. A research proposal is a living document, and there's no way that you can just close the book on it and be like, yeah, I'm done writing it. So here I've mentioned a perfect research proposal, but the reality is that there is no perfect research proposal. You'll never have a perfect research proposal. And if you're waiting in hopes of writing the perfect one, you're not going to start writing your first sentence either. So it really comes down to just getting to it. Nothing to it but to do it. So the first and foremost thing that you need to do is find your area of interest. This happened quite naturally for me while I was preparing for the exam. Why so? Because when you go through each of the 10 units, you realize there are certain topics that almost come to you naturally. You end up doing them in lesser time than the other topics required for you. There are also topics that make you go, wow, I had no idea. So you need to catch on to these little emotions that you feel while you're studying. You need to focus on areas that really excite you or come very naturally to you, things that speak to you organically. Maybe because of how you've been born and brought up, maybe because of your exposure to academia at an early age, or maybe purely out of the kind of media you're exposed to right now. Anything that interests you, is going to be the first step into digging a little deeper. For me, I always knew I wanted to go ahead with cognitive psych. So the question now was what in cognitive psych? Because that's such a broad area. And I feel like that's the biggest mistake students make. They pick up something so vague and so broad that it becomes a big problem to be able to funnel it down to a crisp problem statement and really figure out that this is what my study is intending on discovering or solving or answering. So once you find your area of interest, the second step is the longest step, and this is a step that's always ongoing. This step never stops. You review the literature. You go to Google Scholar, you go to peer review journals, you go to individual websites of Scopus Index journals. You go through every single paper that's come up in the recent times, most cited papers, papers that have been heavily influential, even in the pop culture. You look at things that have been catching eyeballs even around you on social media. Read articles if a research paper seems too heavy for the first time. If my audience right now is comprising of master students or even students who are in their bachelors, pretty sure that most of you have had some experience, first-hand experience with research. So even at this point, if you don't feel confident in reading a research paper from the beginning to the end, start by reading the abstracts and going directly to the data analysis and the research results part. Once you get a good understanding of those two things, then make your way to the methodology. Then try to understand why a certain method was employed for a specific study. And finally, when you're able to look at the research paper in a holistic manner, move to future directions. Understand what are the gaps that the study found were challenges and could not address in this specific paper. So it's a whole process. It's not going to happen the first time you read the paper that catches your eye and you're thinking to yourself, is it me who's just this lame, who's not able to figure out what these words mean? Am I going to ever be able to write something like this that's been published? You will be able to do it. Just don't give up. Keep doing it over and over again. Sometimes words stop making sense. Don't do that. Take a break and come back and understand and remind yourself that there was a reason you started this journey. And once you're done with a fair amount of research, here I've given a pro tip to go through meta-analysis. Meta-analysis allow you to look at the bigger picture, to see what's happened in the last decade or so in a specific area of research. They give you a big, nice snapshot of where you need to target, where you need to go for citing papers, where you need to go for the most cited studies. So all those things, a meta-analysis will give you a nice briefing. And once you start writing, there will be ample of drafts that you make. The first line will not make it to the final draft. The last line may not make it, or might be the best line of your paper as well. So who knows? But keep writing. Don't aim for perfection once again. When I started writing my research proposal, I kept going back to my dissertation, kept going back to the research articles that I was writing for a fellow classmate of mine back in the day. So if you have any previous works that you've done, look back at them, understand why you wrote that, how you came across that language. Academic writing is an art, so make sure to take a course on it, a course or two, or maybe you can opt for it in colleges like Jindal. Academic writing is a part of the curriculum, and that's a
Yeah,
very
that's what
big
I
help.
was about to say. So, I think every research-oriented, what do you say, subject that we have here in Jindal
Yeah,
at least has academic writing, as
yeah,
part of their core courses in, first semester or the second semester. So, yeah,
correct.
that's it. Yeah.
Exactly. And when I sat in my first class of academic writing, I was so confused. How is it going to be any different than all the other assignments that we write? How different could it really be? And then you start to get into every little section, every little paragraph, and how you need to pack so much information into one sentence because you don't get a lot of word count liberty. There's a certain limit you need to follow. So how do you pack all that information and be very intentional with your writing? I feel that is something that only practice can teach you. And you don't need anybody else to teach it to you. Do it for yourself. Keep doing it over and over again. And one day it will just click, like most things. And the fourth part is an extremely integral part of your research journey. You need to be networked, you need to be well connected, you need to have a research community, a very strong backing of seniors, supervisors, professors, anybody you've been in touch with who comes from the field of academia and has anything to do with your research or your research domain. Stay in touch with them, go back to them again and again. They might get annoyed, they might get irritated, but it's for your benefit. So don't hesitate. Ask for feedback and make sure that you understand exactly what is being asked of you. So you make the improvements that are actually necessary. And finally, you will never feel like you're done, but you will have to understand the art of letting go. This is something I struggled with a lot when I was writing my research proposal. I was so distracted. One day I wanted it to be this, and the other day I wanted it to be that, and I wanted it to be perfect, like I said earlier. But then you really need to just understand that you have done as much as you could possibly have. And now is the time to give it to someone who knows much more than you and is going to hold your hand and guide you when you come to practice this in real life. And that's it from my end. I hope that I was able to make sense and this is going to be beneficial for anybody who's watching. Yeah, that's all.
This is actually pretty amazing. I don't think in my webinars that I've done before, I don't think I've ever come across someone who has actually made a presentation for the whole webinar itself. So this is actually refreshing to do. But I also had this one important question. You talked about, having the right supervisor and whatnot.
Right.
So how do you actually, see what kind of qualities do you actually look for a supervisor in your PhD itself?
This is such an important question. And I've talked to so many seniors, and that was the only way I got to know about the importance of a good supervisor. The real difference that is going to be quite jarring for students is that till masters, the only thing that we focused on was the institute. We always looked at a good institute, a reputable institute, an appropriate and relevant institute for the course that we need to study. We never thought, mostly, we never looked at the faculty. We took it for granted that we are applying to a great institute and they assure us that the faculty is the best of the best. The thing about supervisors is that a PhD is going to be a joint effort. And this effort is not even a team effort. It's just two people. It's you and your research supervisor. These two people could have very strong power dynamics. These people could have personality differences. These people could have opinion differences. All of these things are very natural. But a PhD is a very long commitment, about 3 to 7 years, depending on your coursework, depending on your supervisor, depending on your institute. This is a huge commitment and mental sanity to be able to maintain a good well-being, to be able to interact with your supervisor without any hesitation, and also to be able to find a common ground with your supervisor when you're talking about something, when you're discussing a challenge, when you're talking about a new finding in your data set, anything. A very small conversation from not being able to show up at work due to certain reasons today, all these conversations are happening with this one person for the next 5 years. It's so important to either be already familiar with the person, maybe by going to the same university for your PhD as your bachelor's or your master's, since you already have that connect with certain professors. If you have lost that opportunity, if you don't have that opportunity, if that's not a possibility, reach out, do it through LinkedIn, do it through emails. Look at institutes that are going to target the same research domain as you. Go to the website and check out the faculty, see what the faculty is currently engaged in, check out their publishings, see the last research paper that they co-authored or were a part of. If they're on LinkedIn, what's the recent activity been like? If you can't get in touch with the supervisor directly, since there's so much work that they're doing. They probably don't have the time to reply to every single message that they get. Try to talk to their current students who are working under them right now. Try to get in touch with them. Ask them how they got into this university. What was the standout factor in their proposal that made it a very good chance for them to get a admission? And finally, please understand that you will have to either compromise every time. If you end up with a supervisor who's not to your liking, you won't feel like your research is yours. You want to make it a piece of your own work, your own hard work. And the only way to do that is to reach out, to talk to as many people as possible. And then at the end of the day, it is a gamble. But the more research you do, the more connected you are, it's better to get an idea that this is the subject that I need to focus on. And this professor is already also doing this. So we'll most probably have a good rapport. Yeah.
So Arshnoor, just along those lines only, I also want to talk to you about how, publications are an important part of how you want to get into a good PhD also. Because me personally, when I started research myself, so I was a little afraid of, getting into the whole publication scene and, my piece of writing not being good enough to actually be published. So
Mhm.
what kind of advice would you give to these kind of students that are actually afraid ki, my writing is not good enough to actually be
Mhm.
published?
Right. So I had a very similar experience. Every time I wrote something, and it was there were LinkedIn applications on paper submissions, chapter submissions, anything of that sort. Before applying, the first thing that came to my mind was this is not good enough. There are so many other people who write about the same thing, and why would this be something that catches more attention or is actually significant enough for others to read it as well? The most important thing to remind yourself is that you keep improving once you step in. Once you step into the game, that's when you've made the first move. That is the only way to put yourself out there. If you don't write a bad paper, if you don't write, if your paper is published for the first time, all right, and you realize that you could have done better in a certain area, now you have the opportunity to do that with your next paper. No paper is perfect. Even the ones that have the most amount of influence or the most impact, uh, so many challenges and so many gaps come out of those research as well. The reason for that is there's always going to be room for improvement. So you can never expect yourself to be happy with your piece of writing, but try to put yourself out there. Maybe start with a smaller publishing. Maybe start with an article. It doesn't have to be your paper getting published in a peer-reviewed journal. Maybe it starts with a snippet of your research, and then you can move on to bigger things and start applying. You'll get rejected a lot of times, and that's very humbling. So you try to refine your work that way as well. And then there comes a point where, like, this is the best I can do, this has to be accepted. So just put yourself out there that one time.
So I think it takes a lot of courage to take the first step also.
Yeah.
So, Arshnoor, just to conclude the whole, what do you say, the topic itself, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us about, whatever we've talked about in the session? And anything in particular that you want to stress upon?
All right. First of all, I just wanted to say a huge thanks. I think this is such a great initiative. If I was able to go to YouTube or just check out my university's page and see people, real students, alumni being uh, given this opportunity to talk about their experience and how they reached wherever they reached, it would have been a huge help. I would have had such an easy journey if that was the case. So I feel like better late than never. And all thanks to you that I've got this chance to do this today. One thing that I would like to stress upon towards the end is that a career in academia is one of dedication, one of heartbreak. It's very taxing, very exhausting. All this to say that it's equally rewarding. It's so rewarding to be able to Do only and only what your heart truly desires every single day. Learning is a lifelong journey, but not everybody gets to say that for their career as well. You're learning every single day and you're learning exactly what you are interested in learning. So, competitive exams like UGC-NET, GATE, even other examinations that and the entrances that universities take individually as well. All these exams are going to take a lot from you. But the one thing you need to remember is why you started. So take some time at the end of the day, every single day, to just ground yourself, remind yourself that you're doing your best and you're only getting better every day. That's it.
So, Arshnoor, this has been an absolute pleasure to be talking to you, and I've gotten some insights myself into the whole, world of preparing for the net. But thank you so much for taking our time for this session, and yeah, thank you so much. And if you ever want to do another phase of this series, so please do connect with us.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you so much for having me, Rahat.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.